and Jessica. Good morning for the ones online. Can we see here Christian and Melati? I mean, soon they are online as well, and soon they're going to open the cameras so we can see their faces. And so before I start talking about today, I just want to send a few reminders of what is happening next week here as well at the bridge. A lot of things have been happening. So next week we have a visit to the Eco Village that Leslie, Kurt, and a few other parents have built a few years ago in Penistana. So that's going to be a cool activity. We also have Pauline, our fairy, the most beloved fairy of the school, doing this course around fermentation. So if you want to learn about fermentation, Pauline, and it's going to be a green village, Pauline for me is one of the best and most inspiring human beings that I ever met. So if you want to learn about fermentation, that's your best teacher here in the island for sure. And also next week we have, as part of the Green Leadership course, leadership series, we have a very, very inspiring people. Aravit, he works with people that have been suffering from war effects in Sri Lanka. And I heard him talking like a few days ago in an event from Earth Company, and he is absolutely, yeah, Jessica is just there because she was there, and he is absolutely amazing and mind-blowing, the things that he talked there. And he introduced me a concept that I actually want to bring to Green School, which is challenge-based education, which I thought was great because was really based on his challenges in life and what he was learning. It's amazing. So not to be missed, this one is online. And today, we have here a very good example of how I would love to see things flowing at the bridge. We had, Jessica came to me and said, hey, Carol, aren't we doing something about the COP? I mean, COP had happened, and Leslie was there, and we're not going to talk about it. And I'm like, yes, can you help me to make it happen? And, and she, together with Leslie, put energy, and here we are today. She invited Christian, who is actually in Papua New Guinea, that was there. We invited Melati, that it's just, I mean, you both here. Hey, Christian and Melati. And now we have, this amazing opportunity to be talking about COP within the community. So I love when parents kind of come and put forward the things that we should be talking about the community. That's the plan, that it's not Ibu Carol, the only one kind of deciding what we're doing here. Please, guys, help us, And so we have here Melati. Melati, thank you so much for coming. Melati, for those who don't know, she's an alumni Green School student. I think you graduated like 4 or 5 years ago already, yes? And, I mean, she was the founder of Bye Bye Plastic Bag. I know that probably everybody has heard about Bye Bye Plastic Bag. And she also founded Utopia, which is a movement to empower youth. And they do a lot of courses and a lot of things. Melati is amazing, a pure inspiration for us. We have Christian, that it's based in Papua New Guinea, that was brought in by Jessica and was at the COP this year, and it's going to bring his perspective. We have our beloved Leslie, that everybody knows here, and she was also at COP this year, and she's also going to bring a perspective. And Jessica, who is going to be moderating this conversation. So thank you so much. Bye, and I see you soon. Thank you.
Well, hello, everyone, and good morning. Just to introduce myself, I'm a parent here at Green School. I just came about 5 months ago with my husband and 2 sons, and we're very excited to be here. As Carol had said, I was very excited about COP this year because my institution, I work for the World Bank Group, participated, and a couple of my colleagues, one of whom has sent us a video, participated, and I also had known Leslie was going. So I had a lot of enthusiasm to try to bring this to the Green School community because I know you care, and I know you're doing a lot to engage on these topics. We're going to try to keep the conversation as an informative basis for those that don't know COP. My sons don't know what COP is, and we've been explaining on a daily basis. But trying to explain who was there, what is the discussion, what happens, how does it happen, and what was the environment like. And then we'll move into a bit of discussion on some of the results. We hear a lot in the press, perhaps, if you've been watching about what maybe wasn't accomplished, but we're trying to keep it positive that things were accomplished. And there's a lot of initiative from new stakeholders coming in that we haven't seen before, and new seats at the table that some of our presenters are going to talk about, and receiving permanent seats at the table for these conversations for years to come. And then at the end, we want to open it up to you and the community. And I've handpicked a few people who are here who are going to share some of their initiatives, but I would love it if anyone would jump in and try to also share what we're doing. So to start out, I would ask Leslie to share with us her experience from COP and how it was. What did you see when you were there? Try to set the stage for us, Leslie.
Yeah, I'm actually quite humbled to have gotten to go to COP. I work for a company that was behind the software that was tracking the initiatives for the first time this year, which was an important piece. I was not a policymaker, so I think I'm in awe of the people that are working very, very hard at the COP and before and after the conference. But I think what I can do for those that don't know what COP is or get a little befuddled from all the news and exactly what it means is try to provide a pedestrian view of it. And in short, it's not a big, at least this year, was not a big flashy kind of marketing-led conference. It's a working event. I think with the representative we have, it's really great because there's 3 sections to it. There's the UN section, which if you're UN, you get to go into, and all the policymakers are there. So when you see the presidents and the prime ministers speaking, and then all the activity that happens after that, that's kind of at the far end, very exclusive space. They're working like 20 hours a day, every day, on taking each one of those initiatives from the beginning to how we end the COP. The blue zone, which is where I was, and I believe Christian probably was, is where the countries are, you know, the extended change makers from the countries and some of the special interest groups from the indigenous communities all the way to reducing methane. And then there's some of the speaking that's happening there. That was amazing because the day that I was there was Youth Day, one of the days, and I saw 2 different groups from Green School alumni presenting in the blue zone. And then the third piece is the green zone, which is open to the public and shares all the messaging that's happening from the COP, what it is, the history of it, and a lot of the initiatives that can take the solutions forward into the public, and that's open to kids and families and open to that. So anyway, just to get a sense of kind of how it's broken into, and I think each of us represent different parts of the COP. Yeah. But as you have questions, I'm also happy to kind of bring it down to like, I'm not involved in it directly. Can you explain it to me? So I've kept in touch with what's going on, both from when I was there and following up, and I'm happy to jump in at any point and help with that.
Thank you, Leslie. Christian, I'm going to turn to you next as well to set the stage. You were there as a representative in the PNG, the Papua New Guinea delegation. So please tell us about that and what you were doing and what you saw briefly, and we'll go into more detail after that.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, Leslie. She's done a pretty good job of explaining sort of the outline of COP. But I know many people wonder, what does COP mean? Well, it's an acronym for Conference of Parties. And parties are generally countries, but they can also be organizations like the European Union or United Nations bodies, or other countries that, or other states that are not quite countries, like, you know, for instance, Palestine or Taiwan, so that everyone has a seat at the table. We call it the Conference of Parties. I was a delegate member for the Papua New Guinea delegation. My background is as a solar energy developer, so that's my day job, but I also advise to the Papua New Guinea government on solar energy policy and technical capabilities. So I joined our country delegation as a technical advisor, and I was actually a negotiator as well. So my stream that I negotiated within is called the technology stream. and we are part of the United Nations Technology Mechanism, which is part of an important part of the response to climate change, is to implement things like solar energy, electric vehicles, and I negotiated along in the blue zone with all of the other countries on a body called the Climate Technology Centre and Network, the CTCN, which is the main United Nations, I guess, sub-department or organisation that handles technology policy and technological development for member states. So what the CTCN does is we develop policies and we assess countries in terms of what they require, what their urgent needs are to address climate change in terms of technology, and then we deliver, the CTCN delivers advice and I guess match makes with the technology or the sector that they need. So my 2 weeks, I was one of those negotiators that was working 20 hours a day. It was in a very challenging conference this year because of the COVID situation. We missed COP last year. It was cancelled because of the pandemic. But that was maybe a little bit of a blessing in disguise because it allowed our good friends from the United States who had removed from COP but now came back in under a new president, a new administration, and it was wonderful to see the Americans there in full force and re-engaging with COP and being there, a very significant presence. Leslie mentioned that this was a working COP, and I think that sums it up pretty well. A lot of the media and sort of the chatter was looking for a huge announcement, sort of some big development that's going to solve climate change, but that's not really what the nature of COP is. This is a process. It happens every year, or it happens twice a year actually. There's a mini COP every mid-year in Bonn in Germany, where the UNFCCC is based, the climate change part of the UN. I guess the most significant parts of this COP were that we've had a lot of discussion over the last 18 months on net zero. What does that mean? Can countries move to net zero? Now, this is net zero itself is a bit of a contentious definition. Some people think that's a good thing. Some people think maybe it's a bit of a diversion. It is a move in the right direction. And in what we've achieved for net zero in the last sort of 18 months is we've had 3 of the biggest economies in the world, China, USA, and India, have all committed to this net zero. USA by 2050, India by 2060, and China by 2060 and India by 2070. And these, although none of these were announced at COP26 in Glasgow, these I think are the most significant things that happened in the climate space over the last year, and that's really an output of the whole COP process that is a continuous one.
It's great, and I want to turn to you in a minute, but I think you really set the stage for what happens in the Blue Zone in being a primary member of a delegation from the Blue Zone, and I want to talk to you in a bit about that and some of the objectives and the results that you had and what you achieved for the small island developing nations in particular. So we'll turn to that in a minute, and I would like to introduce Melati now, who I've never met, so it's a pleasure to see you on the screen, Melati, and I'm so impressed by you. You're, I think, one of the reasons we came to the Green School with our family and moved to Bali, so thank you for that. We're very supportive of all that you do, but I would like to hear from you what you were doing at COP this year. I think you had a TEDx COP. Can you tell us a bit about that and your efforts this year?
Okay, hello everybody. Good morning, selamat pagi. It's really awesome to be here with you all this morning. Bali story, I just had a bee on my leg and I slapped it on me. But anyways, I would have been there physically with you if I didn't sprain my ankle and pop my knee out. So I'm just stationed at home at the moment. And for this year's COP26, I was also in Bali. I've been following COP since I was 15 for the last 5, almost 6 years. But this year I wasn't able to physically go. I had a virtual presence, and my main focus was kind of trying to connect with people who were there on the ground at the time and translate what was actually happening. So I had a lot of conversations and talks with young change makers, scientists, politicians, and just trying to understand all the different perspectives. For me, definitely representing Gen Z today, I do have to say that I felt generally the thesis of young people of what COP26 was, it was a marketing event. The number one people who paid for COP, who sponsored COP, were all the biggest polluters. And I think that that on itself is ground for the biggest greenwashing event. And I think that that was one of the biggest takeaways and the biggest disappointments of this year's COP. That the fossil fuel industry was the one funding the entire event in the first place. This was something that we thought was absolutely unacceptable. On Youth Day, there were some young people, but not at all of the young people who were there on the grounds. In fact, again, what we saw on Youth Day at COP was a majority of young people who held passes to the blue zone leaving the blue zone and joining the protests, because it was on a Friday, which the organization team of COP could have planned better, because what does Friday stand for? Friday stands for Fridays for the Future. So young people actually chose to be out on the streets rather than inside on Youth Day, which was planned for Friday. So there were a lot of missed opportunities I felt at this COP26. I also feel like for 26 years, we continuously don't evolve our model. I know that COP, actually, for those of you that don't know, have a COI, which is a conference of youth instead of the conference of parties. I've attended a couple of COIs. What I think is missing is that integration onto COP. Instead of having it a couple days earlier, as a total separate event, I feel like there needs to be a stronger integration. Instead of having Youth Day, which was a good step in the right direction, have a young person represented in every single room and every single panel discussion. That's the type of commitment that I think we're lacking. And not only young people, but I don't feel enough Indigenous people were represented this year, nor people who are on the front lines affected by the climate crisis. We were not hearing enough from those on the front lines who are already experiencing the climate crisis. So in that respect, that's kind of a zoomed out, big picture thinking of how I feel a lot of young people received COP this year.
But I think it's really important that you say that into this group, and that we understand that some of that got picked up. I don't think the youth voice was as picked up as, or lack of representation of the youth voice was as picked up in the press as it could have been. So it's very important that you're highlighting that, and especially raising it with our community, because we are here trying to foster more people to go out, youth to go out and do and become a part of the solution. And we also need the blue zone to take account for that. And in that regard, I'll also play a short video from Ellen Maynes, who's a colleague of mine at the private sector arm of the World Bank Group, who was at COP as well. And she was representing the gender perspective. And so I think this same message, similar to the youth representation, will come through in her messaging, but I think it's important for all of us to hear that as well on gender. And she speaks a bit to Indigenous peoples as well. If we could play that video.
Hi, my name's Ellen Maynes, and it's great to join you here remotely today. I'm sharing with you my experience attending COP26. I work for the International Finance Corporation, and I had an opportunity to present with Business Fights Poverty about how energy can empower women for a just transition. I had so many questions before I got to COP. Like, is it really necessary for people to meet in person? Does my carbon footprint justify this? What is my role and responsibility in all of this? And I guess I left with many questions as well, mostly why isn't everyone gravely concerned about climate change and its impacts? There was a record number of attendees who went to this COP, 40,000 versus around 30,000 at the last at COP in Paris. And there was a lot of criticism around things like poor logistics and exclusion of minorities and people with disabilities, and some of the facilities weren't disability friendly, without sign language, no accessibility. And there was a bit of a question over the legitimacy, because Civil society groups were excluded from some of the talks, and the digital platforms that they were encouraged to log in on weren't working. The other thing that we noticed were that there were no delegates registered for a lot of countries. Countries like Afghanistan and Myanmar are affected by conflict. Kiribati is a small island state. And some of the other small island states like Vanuatu and Samoa had registered teams but weren't able to attend due to COVID and travel disruption, cost of accommodation, visas and all that type of thing. In terms of gender equality, were women represented? Well, unfortunately not. There was still an inadequate representation of women at COP, as well as youth and also Indigenous people. And this one was actually worse than previous years, and this really matters because 80% of the people displaced by climate change are women. For the Pacific Islands and other small island developing states, there'd been a lot of commitments made in the past for financial compensation for those affected by crisis, but who didn't cause it. You might have seen the video of the Tuvalu Foreign Minister recording a statement in Waist Deep Water. Well, these commitments haven't been met, and it's really quite sad because a lot of these islands will at risk of disappearing due to rising sea levels. So it was quite a large and overwhelming event in many ways. It was so immense that everyone switched to wearing running shoes to get around and had to do rapid COVID tests each day to get in. It was really encouraging and positive to see the impact of activism. You will have probably seen some news of Greta Thunberg, who attended and famously commented on the blah, blah, blah that she said was coming from the pale, stale male representatives. So that's quite impactful and has got a lot of coverage. I noticed personally that this wasn't necessarily the feeling in the corridors of COP. There was good representation of women and youth and Indigenous people, people of colour within the corridors, but what we hear is in the actual negotiation rooms and at the head of the parties, there was a lack of representation. Tuesday, the second week, was actually Gender Day, so that was fantastic. We had a chance to hear from some world leading women like Nancy Pelosi, Nicola Sturgeon, and really I was quite impressed by the diplomacy of Mary Robinson, who leads the elders, and it's really quite interesting to hear what she has to say. There was also a lot of representatives from the fossil fuel industry, and that was something that also was quite uncomfortable. I guess in terms of the good news, I came away really believing in the need for face-to-face diplomacy, and Christian has shared some of his experience with that. Also, I think what was positive was the way in which the Pacific Islands rallied to get attention. I gave the example of the Tuvalu Foreign Minister doing his speech in Waist Deep Water. Well, on their stand, they had displayed penguins hanging and polar bears with suitcases, so art for activism was really something that was very strong. I think there's a really good opportunity for increased representation of women and inclusion of different groups to really support this just transition. I see for our own organisation a really good opportunity for us to be pioneers and think about how we might better integrate gender into the investments and the investment commitments that have already been made by our organisation. But look, thanks for having me, and I look forward to more people joining the conversation around climate change and COP26. Thanks.
Okay. I think as a next step, we'll try to keep the conversation positive. So we've heard some of the challenges. We've heard some of the stage, which maybe wasn't the appropriate stage or the best stage that could have been developed, but it's so important that we're hearing that perspective to try to know what to do next COP to try to make it better. And I think a lot of these voices who are speaking here today are really going to be influential in making it better next time around. We have a slide. Leslie and I kind of talked about putting together some of the achievements from COP. So we have a slide here you can kind of glance through and see some of the high-level pledges that were made at this year's negotiations, both on the government-to-government side. There was a heavy focus on reducing methane reductions. So you see 100 countries have signed up to pledges by 2030 to reduce their methane. Global deforestation was a very large topic, a topic I think that's being injected for one of the first times at COP, that nations are actually taking this very seriously on how to preserve forests. And then we have pledges on clean technology and affordable technology from the nations who are leading the development of that technology, so that's a positive outcome we see. And we've also seen then commitment to reduce coal-fired power. I'm seeing that in my work in the energy space. We're having conversations on it daily now, and we're also seeing for the first time private sector members. If you want to go to the next slide, we're seeing a whole new engagement of non-state actors coming into the dialogue on what can they do, and this is one of the first times you're seeing that at COP, I believe. But you have commitments from any number of foundations, and I think towards the bottom, what's really interesting is you have things like the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, which is $130 trillion worth of global financial assets committing to achieve net zero and to reduce carbon. You also have other funds and kind of initiatives, but it's very important that not just governments and state actors be a part of this, but the financial institutions that are funding these state actors and funding the businesses or the businesses themselves. And I think we have one final slide we can turn to. So with that, we might turn back to Leslie to share some more perspective on this, on the engagement, some of the positive outcomes that you're seeing from this year's COP.
Yeah, and for those longer-term parents, I did get to see Barna was there, and I spoke with him at the beginning of the conference, and towards the end of my time there, Matt Leggett, who a lot of people know as well, who've been to many COPs, because my range of emotions there was in awe to apathy to being overwhelmed with the enormity of the issues that, you almost couldn't get onto it. And one of the perspectives that I took home with me from that was the continual progress that has happened. If you look back to some of the early COPs that the folks on the call have attended, where some of the science wasn't even believed. Like when we were first talking about it here at Green School, where the private sector wasn't involved, where there was no representation. So folks that know me, I don't greenwash, but I am an eternal optimist. So that really helped me to say, like, okay, there is a lot to do, overwhelming, but if, there is some perspective, and the people that were working in the blue zone did have some positivity. There was ups and downs, and, we all kind of followed the news for that, but that part was real, and it was a really good perspective. And taking it forward, I know before we wrap up, I think it's important for the policymakers and the folks on the call that are taking this feedback back so that every COP is improved. But it is kind of a 2-week conference that we were talking about in those perspectives. And the reality is that we can sit here and complain about the people that were there, but we all have a role in climate change. And I think before we wrap up today's call, it's an important piece to talk about what we're doing, within our community, what the Green School can do, and individually we do. And before we wrap up, I can give some examples of just taking the momentum that comes from the interest of having the COP. It hit the news, there's a room full of people here, and if we just leave this room and don't take any action, we've also failed. So I think coming back to that after we hear from the rest of the panel, I can give some examples of what I've done, but I think that the positivity is everybody's here, and there's momentum right now outside of the people that attend the COP that we should be activating.
And I think that's an important message, and really what we're hoping to do today is to inspire people rather than us watching the news and walking away a bit depressed and disengaging. I looked a lot at what Clover Hogan, another Green School alum, was doing with eco-anxiety. I know I feel it, my kids feel it, it's felt in my family, but trying to get past it and to follow some of the inspiration and the leadership that we have here in this room. So towards that, I will also turn back to both Christian and Melati, but Christian, you were able to achieve some very amazing results, and I just would love for you to share that with the group today.
Yeah, thank you, Jessica. And what Melati said earlier about the lack of the youth voices, it's really accurate, and this has been a problem for some time. It is recognised by the participants at COP, by the parties, that this is an issue and we need to change it. And I'm very happy to say that in my part of the negotiations, we actually introduced a initiative to set permanent representative bodies from a youth representative, a women and gender representative, and an Indigenous peoples representative. So the CTCN, the Climate Technology Centre, we now have 3 permanent seats representing those constituencies. Because
Christian, I think we owe you a round of applause for that.
Oh, thank you. It's applause for myself and all of my co-negotiators. This was an initiative we thought would be a little bit controversial. Some of the more conservative countries we were concerned about, but I'm really happy to say that it was supported unanimously. We had a full consensus that this was important, and it was passed very shortly and very quickly. So with those negotiations in the blue zone, we do allow observers in to see how the negotiations are going, but that only happens on the last day of negotiations of 2 weeks, which isn't really adequate. But now with these permanent seats reserved for youth, women and gender and Indigenous people, they can be a permanent presence and a permanent voice in those negotiations. So everyone was very happy with that. And the other thing that we did in the technology sector was that we also established a permanent representative seat, a voting seat for the small island developing states, of which my country, Papua New Guinea, is a member. So until this point, we had only a smaller committee, and we had to rotate onto and off the committee. So we were only allowed to negotiate and vote on initiatives for 2 years out of every 6. But now, thanks to the actions at this year's COP, those small island developing states now have a permanent presence. So this, I'm very happy to take this out. This is maybe not a headline news, we solved climate change, but we did get important people into the room to help us make these decisions that will be carried into the future.
Again, Christian, another round of applause, because we have small island developing nations having a permanent seat in the conversation. So thank you very much for all of your efforts in the PNG delegation. And Melati, this turns to you. You have a permanent seat at the table. So what do you intend to do with it? And where do you see going forward? What are your thoughts on this and how we can proceed? And we look to you always for leadership and inspiration.
I did that, muted and started talking. Anyways, moving on. I think there's a lot that still needs to be done, and we all discussed that. Something that we've taken on into our own hands alongside COP and COI at Youthtopia is we started a 17-day event called Youthtopia Unite. We had 60 youth speakers from over 20 countries participating in this virtual event, covering all the 17 SDGs. So day 1, SDG 1, day 2, SDG 2. And what was an outcome of those 17 days was a partnership with the United Nations Global Goals. And we released 17 to-do lists for each SDG, written and created by young people on the front lines, by young people who have projects that are already solving the SDGs. And we created a to-do list divided into 3 parts: what we think should be on the to-do list of governments, what we think should be on the to-do list of corporates, and what every single individual can also do. And I think that that is really where we acknowledge that there's a lot of things to do, but we also know that we have to start now with these solutions. I think one of the most frustrating parts as well of being a young change maker, having started at 12, now turning 21 in a couple of days, is that change is happening way too slowly. And these faraway promises of 2070, 2060, it's hard to grasp. It feels far away. So what we tried to do is break it down and say, okay, here's what we can all do starting today. We know that we have the technology. We know that the willingness is there. We just need the political will to do the right thing. And so I think it's really about highlighting those solutions and leading by example. And I think young people are doing that in every corner of the world.
Thank you for Melati for that, and I hope we can get your your list of 17 directives for each of the SDGs, and we can share that with the Green School and the Bridge community, because I think it's incredibly important that we all look to what can we do. And that was kind of the final component that Leslie and I thought we could discuss today, is turning over to our community here at the Green School in Ubud and in Bali, trying to see what are the initiatives on the ground. You've started here, Melati, you've done amazing work. You've put Bali and Indonesia on the map as being an island and a nation that cares about climate change, that's leading the way. And I know you're going around the world to inspire and showcase stories from others who are doing this. But we thought we could hear some stories from people here today. And I've handpicked a couple of people if they want to come up and talk a bit about the initiatives. So maybe I could ask Micah first. I've just recently met her a couple of days ago, but she's doing phenomenal work, and we'll ask her to share.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you all, and Carol, to be here. Can I sit here? Well, happy to be here. Thank you so much for giving an insight in COP, get a more behind-the-scenes kind of feeling for it. So thank you. Thank you as well. I'm here together with my business partner, Oliver. He's there. And we are from Scoot. And actually, Scoot is founded by 4 Green School parents at the bridge. So this is really what the bridge does, I feel. It's not only about inspiration, it's action afterwards, right? And these 4 parents came together and they said, okay, we have 2 main problems here in Bali, plastic and air pollution. And let's focus now on the air pollution. They wanted to do that, and scooters is a really big part of it. So they had a dream, like, if we can change all the scooters and basically all the cars as well into electric alternatives, or push bikes, or walking, or biobus, but not petrol, that would be great, right? And they started Scoot from here. They founded Scoot. They get the first scooters on the island, and electric mobility basically has 3 advantages. One is the noise. Well, we got the experience there, right? We were trying to share information, and then we were interrupted by a big noise. So if all the scooters here would be electric or push bike, we would not have that, right? And it's also more healthy for us. And then the second one is that no CO2. And we can reduce already CO2 by driving electric. Even though in Indonesia we have a lot of coal electricity, it's still a big decrease. We at Scoot compensate all the remaining CO2. We compensate it, and obviously we want to move to solar-powered, wind-powered scooters. That's the final step, right? So we're taking it step by step. And the third one is air pollution. So you hear my voice. I'm a little bit asthmatic. It's really getting worse on the island. It's worse on Bali than in Amsterdam. And Amsterdam is quite a big city, right? So air pollution is the third advantage. I also want to share a little bit with you. We are the first 100% electric fleet, but also we are a social enterprise. And this means that we always put impact before profit. I had the luck to be invited to the same meeting to see 8 Impact Heroes talk about social enterprise, and I really was inspired by it. For us, in the day-to-day business, it means small and big things, basically. So it means my chain key, it's behind you. We wrap always the scooters to stand out, right? But we are not wasting the plastic we do for the wrap. We make the chain keys out of it. So think about your business in small parts. The second thing, what we do, we are really focusing on the youth, education. I really think, Melati, this is the future, right? This is the generation that will experience climate change, but is also really willing to work for it. So I think education is the key here. We do it with different schools, but obviously in Green School, we are taking it next year to the next step. And we are trying to make a green mobility course, not only about electric scooters, but green mobility in general. How do you make it? How is the whole production process going? What is the source to the vehicle, really? To teach our youth what is the benefit. And thirdly, we are really questioning all our suppliers. What do you do with the battery after the life cycle of the scooter? And to be really honest and transparent with you, we did not get a really satisfying answer yet. And we don't take no for an answer. So basically what we will do with the old scooters we have, we will take these batteries, we will work together with partners that have solar panels, and we will make sure that we can use as a second life the batteries for storage for renewable energy, so that our solar capacity in Bali can grow too. So to give you some examples, I think a social business should go further than just renting out or selling bikes, but really take it in your whole business. Last but not least, we are here today, Oliver and I. After this talk, you can try our scooters if you want. I really feel confident to say we are bringing the next generation scooters to the island. So they are super fast, they have a long range. I came here and I only used 20% of my battery. So from Canggu to Green School and 3 times back, it's possible with these scooters. And also if you live in Ubud region, uphill is also nice too. Please feel welcome. There's Oliver, this is me. We are there at the charging stations if you want to try. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Micah. And I'm going to be first in line for the scoot. I actually emailed her the other day about trying to get a couple for my husband and I. Next we have Ayu, if you can come to talk about Carbon Zero and all of the amazing initiatives that you have going in the Green School. And if you have fellow students who would like to come up with you, please, everyone come and share what you're doing.
Hi everyone, my name is Ayu and I am here at Green School as a senior. Actually, Melati, you were the person who inspired me in doing, in raising awareness and trust. I remember in 2018 we bumped into each other when I was wearing, in the toilet, at the Green School toilet, when I was wearing the Bali's Biggest Cleanup shirt, and then I remember she was like, "Oh, I love your shirt," and then I was just there, stood there nervous because I couldn't say anything. I was like, "Oh, it's Melati." And since then, I've been doing stuff with the, like raising awareness and as Micah said, that we like the two problems that we have in Bali is air pollution and waste and plastic waste. And since 2018, since Melati inspired me, I've been doing stuff like raising awareness about waste management in the community especially. And I'm here, I feel really, I'm privileged going to Green School because I know that like all of my peers and local peers and my friends outside of the local friends, I feel like they also need the same education. They also need to be educated in this climate change. They need to know what's happening now. And this is what actually I've been doing. I've been like sharing my knowledge that I got from Green School and sharing them to my friends and at the local school. And also now I am the part of Carbon Zero team, which is a student-led project that aims to reduce the amount of carbon footprint at the Green School community, not only Green School, but also the Sibang community through 3 aspects: biobus, kembali, and the bamboo seedlings. And while in COP26, like on November 5th, I gave a talk in the panel discussion about how like we reduce the carbon footprint here, and also we planted our first bamboo here at the Green School after the long break. And as a high school student here, we didn't celebrate the sustainable solution last year, and this year 2 of my friends here, they're here, Akshara and Ayman, they organize a high school sustainable solution. And maybe one of you or 2 of you can come up and talk about it. My friends are amazing. They organize this high school sustainable solution.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, November 5th, about a month ago now, we organized a high school festival because it was time for a community event, I feel. I feel like it's been a while since the last time the high school had a community event where we all got together and talked about sustainability, especially for the people who came during the pandemic. Green schools have been a little bit just trying to maintain our normal school. So so we organized with the help of Akshara and a couple of our other friends. We reached out to a bunch of things that are happening on Bali, and we focused on more of, instead of like what we can do in 30 years, but like what's happening like right now. And so we had a lot of different people come and talk about what they're doing in panel discussions, and we had a lot of students teach workshops, and we also got entertainment to come, so we had a lot of activist musicians to come and kind of illustrate their form of activism and their form of like climate justice through art. And we were lucky to have Gede Robi, who is a Balinese musician and activist, to come and play music and do a screening of his movie Pulau Plastic and a Q&A afterwards, and that was probably the highlight of the day for me. And yeah, Shara, if you want to say anything?
I think the main thing was trying to get students to be inspired again, because with the pandemic we had lost community events and the entire green school feel, the authentic green school feel that I was lucky enough to experience in my first year. A lot of kids didn't, and with COP going on and climate change, we just wanted to inspire kids to kind of engage in their own sustainable solution, or let them know it's happening and there are ways for you to be a part of it without having to feel nervous with like eco-anxiety. And that was just the main goal, to kind of inspire everybody to take some sort of change in their own lifestyle or get involved to make an impact, because it's what we need right now. And yeah, really fun day, really hectic for Eamon and I know we were running around, and then we danced during lunch to music. All of us just got in the high school peace garden, we were all dancing. And then we had music after school. So it was just a really fun day to kind of bring the community back and get sustainability involved in Green School.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, you guys, for coming and taking time out of your school day to share with us. And then I think at the end, we'd just like to invite open to any of you. I see one hand in the back, and I also am going to call on Chris, too, because he was also on this call that we had the other day, and I know you and your family are doing some really interesting and innovative things. So please share with us what you're doing. And announce yourself, too, who you are. Tell us your name.
Hello. Hi, I'm Ibu Harriet from high school. Hi, thank you so much. Amazing to see you, Melati, and to hear about the work in Papua New Guinea. And thank you, Leslie. Great to see you.
Come up to the front so we can all see you, Ibu.
Okay, I'm sure we've all heard my voice enough. But I just wanted to say, we talk a lot about getting these young people at the table. And something that's really inspiring me from them is actually their table is big enough for everyone. It's so inclusive. They don't have to do certain things to invite people. If you've got a voice and you can make an impact, come join them at the table. So I just wanted to highlight two pieces that sometimes get overshadowed when we think about the COP. And one of those is the Conference of Youth. We had, it was actually chaired by an Indonesian woman in the Sea Dragon aspect of it, which is the Southeast Asian, and we have representatives in Indonesia. Also the mock COP, which happened last year when the world decided they could not run the COP because they physically couldn't get there. The global youth was like, come on, this is a crisis, what are you doing? And so they held a global conference of youth, connecting voices from all around the world, but not only that, platforming, putting first people of indigenous knowledge and who'd never had an invite to the table. Because guess what? The table is theirs. It's not about getting invited to it. Please check those websites out. The declarations on those are inspiring, and they're real, and they're impactful now. Get your children to read them and sign the pledges. There is so much amazing work being done outside of those rooms that we can connect with right now. So that's my pledge, and just a huge thank you to the young, inspirational humans here and on the call. So yeah, thank you.
Chris, I think it's your time to say something. She called you out.
So it's kind of interesting. A bunch of people think I was probably being rude when you were coming in because I was sitting on the back on a conference call with 106 women from around the world who work with the Women's Earth Alliance. And what's interesting about that is, not to go too deep into that program if you don't know about it, but these are individual women who are doing things. It's exactly what Melati is talking about here. They're not, I don't like policy. I understand the need for policy. I love people who do policy. Bureaucracy and policy drives me crazy. But I love where we get down and people are doing things, like Scoot changing things. What Melati is doing to change things, what you three students are here doing things and making that impact. And I think that is what is so incredible and positive. And that, and people who know me well know that I look at the world through rose-tinted glasses. Like, I get accused of this often. And so to me, it is everything about what is happening here with the kids and what is happening, like at places here with Carol at the bridge and other people who are trying to do things. And I love that we have people coming in here, Jessica and Leslie, coming back and representing things, and all these wonderful people who are coming here onto this call. So anyways, I think this is fantastic. These are the sorts of events that we need to continue to do here at Green School. And for me, the beauty of Green School is always the fact that we have hope. That is the one thing that drives us. And we don't avoid the negativity. It is real. But we look at the positive aspects of what we can be doing as a community to be making a difference. And so I think it's really amazing that we have all of you here today. We have, I think, 20 people online. And that is a really positive thing. So thanks to all you guys. Always nice seeing you. Melati, nice meeting the other new speakers up here. So thank you, guys.
And we're going to turn the mic
of course
over
you want to
another
go to the
speaker.
stage.
Of course, hello. What do you think I'm going to do? Sit back there and not say anything? Hello, hello. I thought I might sort of talk a little bit about carbon credits, and I'm sure that was a sort of a topic they're all talking about. In a past life, I was an accountant, and I thought, what is this carbon credit trickery? It's some sort of, and there's criticism of carbon credits, right? Because I think I annoyed someone the other day because I've offset my entire family's carbon for 100 years by buying carbon credits. So there, and I thought, is it some accounting trickery? I mean, my job here is I start companies, purpose-driven companies, mostly started by women, but not only women. And one of them that I started from Bali virtually is called Beta Carbon. And the mission of that company is to tokenize carbon credits and increase the price of carbon credits. And just quickly, a carbon credit is the right to emit 1 ton of carbon dioxide. So what happens a lot is the oil companies would say, well, I need to emit 100 tons of carbon dioxide every day, so I'm going to buy 100 carbon credits, which gives me the right to pollute, because somebody else has generated carbon credits by planting forests or planting seaweed farms or by converting to solar or whatever it is. And so I thought, well, this kind of sounds a little dodgy. But as I've been working with this company, Beta Carbon, that we set up, their mission is to drive up the price of carbon credits. And the reason why I really love that, and as I've sort of been becoming aware of it, I've been talking to Takashi, who has these really nice biodigesters that you put compost in, and then it generates methane, biogas for the cooking stoves, and it sort of takes chemicals away from the soil. And it also generates carbon credits, right? You can generate 10 carbon credits per year per biogas thing. And that would be fantastic, because then you can get the farmers in Indonesia to use these things and then get some of that carbon credit money for themselves. Unfortunately, some of these carbon credits are like $2 per carbon credit, so $20 a year isn't very interesting. But the higher that carbon price can go, let's say it was $100 per carbon credit, then using that biodigester becomes much more profitable to the farmer. And when we were working in Australia with this company, Beta Carbon, there were some big Australian farms doing cattle farming who were sort of saying, well, wait a minute, as soon as the carbon credit price gets above a certain amount, I'm going to decide to reforest part of my land and stop doing cattle farming. Why? Because I can make money from it, whereas you can't with a lower carbon price. So criticism aside, we're really seeing projects that would otherwise be unprofitable suddenly become profitable. And if the seaweed farmer knows that he can generate 10 carbon credits and that's $1,000, for him that might be a lot. Then you might see 20,000 seaweed farms happening. So I would urge you to sort of think about carbon credits in a good way, because it's very, very easy. I hear everything that Melati's saying, and there's actually a ton of criticism that you can do. I mean, a lot of people would say that the guy who's running this carbon credit company is a super smart guy, but he's an FX trader, right? He was for most of his life driven by greed. And the carbon credits I bought to offset my family's carbon have doubled in price. So I've doubled my money while saving the world. It doesn't sound like it should go together. But what it made me realize is that if you can combine greed with saving the world, And if you think about crypto, everyone's mining crypto and they're saying, oh, that's bad because it's causing real issues with, because crypto mining is not very good for the environment. If mining of carbon credits is these kind of regenerative projects. And so if you can align those two things, because all of the youth are saying, oh, how terrible what we're doing to the environment. Meanwhile, they're making a ton of money from crypto, right? So it doesn't necessarily sit next to each other. But when I was looking more into it, you found that really there's a real hope for the world if you can combine these two things of greed and doing good.
Thank you.
That's that.
I think there's one more person, and I may also call on another. So please come up and tell us who you are. You're Luke, I think,
Come,
right?
Nando.
Yeah.
And there is three also asking something online. Three after Nando. We're going to read your question, yeah? Oh my gosh, everybody coming to stage today, Chris.
Good morning, everybody. I would like to, I wanted to speak from behind, but they put me in front, so I think we want solutions, and I think if you are thinking on reevaluating your life, what is to be a human being, what is to have the earth as a mother and a provider of life, and if you have come to care about the people that you like and the values of having clean water, I think you're being part of the solution. I think I've been following the environmental conference for 30 years and they all have become a business model, a response to make profit. Even the World Bank was trying to catch up all the money from all the governments, trying to make paying the debt into putting money into more of what they call the developing countries. So how to translate all this cash in and make profit. How I remember, I don't know if you all do, about the Green Revolution. In the 90s, after the Rio conference, we came to find out a problem. And this is, I think the problem is that we don't really know what a problem is, and we just rush in the solutions. The problem of us being overpopulated in a way and having solutions to feed people have created the Green Revolution, which means mass productions of pesticides and chemical solutions to make solutions to feed the world, and which have become a greater problem over the pollution of the waters and the rivers and the health of the people, of all of us. And we are kind of living the consequences of this green revolution that came out of a conference just like this. I think we are for sure know that one of the problems are like she said, there is no youth representation. Like the woman said, there is no woman representation. There is not indigenous representation. But it is logical because this is what part of the problem has been. So it should not be so astonishing to see why this representation is lacking of. It's just logical for the model that it has been putting us in this problem. No? So coming to know that the problem in Bali of, let's say, the air pollution is the response is selling Muppets that are not carbon derived, and the solution is to sell more of that. I wonder, I mean, I would love to have that. I would love to have, instead of gasoline Muppet, to have an electric one. I would love to have that. But I would think, how do you come up with that that's the problem in Bali. And how do you come up with rushing into a solution like that? I think we should take the time to see what the causes and to have a consensus of what the problem is, and not rush into a problem that the solution is to make profit. And I don't think about it, even if you think that greed and fear has not been the ultimate causes of what has come up to an environmental or crisis in the environment. And if you can revalue your human values into what greed means, I think you're part of the solution.
Yeah, we agree, and thank you for saying those words. And we have much to discuss, and I think we can all stay and discuss as long, but I'm conscious of time, and I want to thank Melati because she had a hard stop. And thank you so much for joining us, Melati.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say that also keep in mind, we will not solve these problems with the same thinking that created them. And unfortunately, we also don't have the luxury of time to wait before taking action. So I just wanted to leave that after hearing a couple of the comments today, but happy to have joined you. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope everybody has a great discussion afterward.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank Christian as well. Christian, I know you probably have to go about your day as well, but thank you so much for joining us from PNG, and please thank Ellen as well for her presence.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's been a great discussion, and I look forward to continue it and staying in touch online.
Thank you. Welcome to the Green School community.
Yeah, do we have time for any more thing? You guys want to go wrap up?
I think the students have to go, they're indicating, but if people want to stay and talk,
I might just try to wrap it up. Like I said, I felt as not one of the workers there, the least I could do was represent in a way that everybody understands kind of what happened and how to take it forward. So again, even that slide can be a little bit like, what does that mean? I think just to wrap up where the COP ended was that there were 4 initiatives. One was to decrease carbon emissions and increase renewable energy. Another was to increase the funding that was not met for the less representative developing countries. That was the second. The third was adaptation, so all the other solutions kind of all together. It's not just reducing, but it's coming up with alternatives is there. And then the fourth is tracking all of this and being accountable. And again, that's why I was there, because my company was a part of that software solution. For the people that are working this every day, like Christian, like Melati, like some of the others, I give them absolute right to say blah, 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 like Greta, absolutely, right? For the rest of us, I have to say, like I don't really feel like I have the right to say that to people that are working on it, because I don't understand the challenges enough, and I'm not working full time, but that doesn't mean that we can't be a part of the solution. So the day after I attended COP, I was at a marketing conference, and I want to just bring this kind of to like those that go like, I don't know where I sit in this solution. I'm in corporate marketing, and I sat at Green School for many years going, how do I bring these together? So I started talking to marketing people, and they were having challenges on how to green marketing. They were scared because of greenwashing out there and so forth, so we started a conversation, we started a project. I was brought to this conference in London after COP to speak on that. Out of 20 sessions, it was the third, like in the top 3 of importance, which I can promise you 3 years ago I was trying to pitch it. Let's talk about green marketing, and nobody wanted it on the agenda. And the conversation I had to the folks that were in the room there was, instead of blah, 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 from our perspective, we need to think about what we're expecting of the policymakers and bring it to ourselves. And I had 3 other words, and I've heard them all today. And it was authenticity, action, and accountability. And to add one from Melati, now, as a timing piece. And again, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, you're making decisions every day. You're deciding what you're putting on the table for your kids to eat. You're deciding what your transportation is, and in other parts of your world. And, we just took it straight into the meetings, these three things: authenticity, accountability, and action. And we just took it into the meetings we were having right off the back. There was a lot of momentum after COP. You went to COP, tell me about it. So we started talking about this. And I mean, simple things that are happening. Today, for instance, we have, in my company, we have an event, like a marketing event in India. It's the first one that's going to be fully green. There's no paper. There's no single-use plastic. That's in India, right? That came from just talking about it on a team call and saying, hey, what decisions are you making today? And one of the people on the call was planning this event. And again, if we all did that, it makes the difference that supports all the other stuff that these people that are doing full-time are. I think there's some cool initiatives within agriculture and some other things. Maybe I pass back to Jessica to talk about. If you're not sure where to take this forward, there's places here to talk about. The bridge is fantastic, because otherwise, I always kind of say, and people say it, why are you at Green School if you're not going to be a part of the solution? So, yeah.
So thank you all for coming today. I don't know how much more time we have and how much more we want to get into some of the other initiatives. But Carol, thank you so much for hosting us. And Yugi, thank you for all of your organizational support and for all of you for coming and being part of the dialogue.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. And I actually want to add a comment to that. So I'm very fortunate in my life, and my family owns 10,000 hectares of forest in the Amazon. That's quite a lot of land. And if we want to do the right thing there, we don't have the resources from financial institutions to do it. They will not give credit, or they will not hold our property as a guarantee to give us money to do anything sustainable in that area. If we want to plant soya, all the money is there, like boom. So this needs to change. It's not only policy, but it's also where the money is coming from, where the money is going. And people that do have the privilege, like I do, to do something about it, can actually do something about it. Because now I feel my hand tied with the pressure of my family trying to shift what we've been pitching for 40 years, because there is no ways to do it different. So I think that for those who are in financial institutions and have, like you, and have the power to shift that also, how does money flows, how does money goes, for people that want to do the right thing, we also should think about it. So thank you so much. I was just a last share, because this is something that I see me being someone that in my family has to be kind of like pushing this agenda. People that are there in the Amazon, and I've witnessed with my own eyes. I've been going to the Amazon since I was born, and I've seen with my own eyes every year, flying over from Cuiabá to the town that we have the farm, that forest disappear year by year. And now, when I was 2 or 3, 4, 5 years old, my fear was that if the airplane would fall, nobody was going to find us, because there was only forest there. And when I do the same flight nowadays, there is only soya beans. So if there is not a shift in the financial model, this is never going to happen, because people that are there, they want to eat, they want to have the same things that we have here, and they want to have a good life. So, sorry, I really wanted to say that, because when we talk about policy making and all of that, and I see what is happening there, and I see people trying to do the good things, but not finding the systems, and I feel very frustrated. And I can understand why some people take the decision of taking the wrong decision. Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much, Leslie. Jessica, thank you so much for kind of bringing this, topic and, helping to organize you two. Christian is already gone, Melati as well. Thank you, everybody. Hope to see you next week in our talk.